Hello and welcome to the Photo Bar, the podcast talking all about the business and lifestyle of photography while drinking beer. This is episode number 17, Pursuing Your Passion with musician Aaron Craker. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Matt Druin, and my goal as always is to help you become a better person, a better photographer, and a better entrepreneur. Today I am chatting with my childhood friend Aaron Craker, who's a musician based out of Louisville, Kentucky, that recently quit his teaching job to pursue music full-time with his band, Fredrick the Younger. We chat a lot about the path that he's been on, making that leap from, the secure job to his passion, and his creative process and struggles that he deals with. Starting out, I didn't really have a plan to make an actual episode out of this chat, but afterwards I felt there was a lot that we could all relate to and also learn from. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and open the bar. Go ahead and introduce yourself and let me know what kind of beer you're drinking today.
All right. Hey, I'm Aaron Craker, and today I'm drinking the Show Nuff, which is a golden ale from a local Louisville brewery called Against the Grain.
All right, nice. Yeah, I'm about to head up to Louisville in September, so I'm going to have to stop off at some breweries up there.
Yeah, we've had a few sprouting up within the last few years. So
you guys don't have that many?
No, we do. Yeah, we have a few pretty recent that came out, like Fall City. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to check out.
Cool. Well, I am drinking Red Hare, which is local to me, actually. And it is a IPA with a mix of grapefruit. So I don't know if I'm actually going to like it or not, but it sounded interesting. So.
Oh, yeah, I like the can.
Yeah, the can's cool. I usually choose beers, honestly, from artwork. So, if they look cool, then I'll just try them. Normally, I have a topic, that I know I want to talk about. But with you, I didn't. I just thought it was interesting, just being a creative. And, I remember, I don't know, how long have we been friends? Since, 12?
I think it was 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And I just remember, staying at your house and you were always playing, music, and your whole living room was just a band, essentially. So I know it's something that you've wanted to do for a really long time. And that's why I thought it was cool that you're finally just breaking out, I guess, and doing it, So what have you been up to lately?
Oh, not much. Just getting ready to go on tour in April. And we're also finishing up our new album, so that's also, everything's happening at the same time. But we just recorded a new album in January, and now we're finishing up the mixes now and getting them mastered.
What is that called?
Yeah. I don't know what the name of the album's going to be yet. We haven't decided. We'll figure that out last minute, I'm sure.
Is that pretty normal, or where you just kind of wait? Or do you normally have a name?
I think most bands put it off, but I don't know.
So what made you want to move into being a full-time musician now at this point in your life?
I guess after high school I went to college, and I ended up starting, actually, come to think of it, I started out in art at Murray State, and because I was with the intention to go into photography, I ended up switching over to music my junior year. And so junior year and then senior year, I was majoring in music. But a music degree is going to take 4 years no matter what. So I couldn't just finish it in 2 years. So I ended up dropping out of school. And I moved to Columbus, Ohio, and started a band actually with Nate Stevens. Remember him?
Yeah.
Okay. We had a band for 9 months in Columbus, Ohio, and it was, not a great year for me. It was tough. I moved out. I wasn't ready to.
You moved out of your parents, or just moved out of the city?
Yeah, I moved out of I guess I was, my parents' house. I was going to college at Murray and then staying with my parents during the summer. So then I just moved to Columbus, Ohio, and I ended up without a college degree, which made it a little bit tougher. But I wasn't making much money, and I was gigging, till like 2 a.m, and then going to the bakery at like 5 a.m. I mean, just really unhealthy lifestyle.
That's the artist lifestyle.
Yeah, but it was with no reward. It was all just a disaster. It was just a bad year. And I never really got my head above water that whole year. And then I ended up just moving back to Louisville and finishing up my music degree at U of L. Okay, so after that, I started getting carpal tunnel, I guess, at the end of that degree. And so I started to think about doing something else. So I knew that I liked teaching, and I knew that I was good with kids. And so I was thinking I started out tutoring, and I liked that. And then I started teaching at an elementary school through AmeriCorps. And then the school hired me. And so I've actually been teaching a lot for the past 8 years.
Were you teaching music or something else?
No, I did computer lab for 3 years, and I did reading interventions for a couple of years. And then I went to Bellarmine University, and I was going to get my MAT program, or get my MAT so that I could get certified and, make it more of a career out of it. But it's funny because, as a musician, I started to realize that I really can't do anything else with music, because I was staying focused on teaching, and I convinced myself that that's what I was going to do, but I kept doing music. And then it's also funny because the carpal tunnel, actually, I found out, a few years later, wasn't even a thing. Like, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
So you had carpal tunnel, but it just wasn't as bad as you thought it was?
Yeah, like usually carpal tunnel is, a death sentence for a musician because it gets worse as you get older. And they found out what I had wasn't the progressive kind. It was just acting up sometimes, and it was not that big of a deal. So then I ended up, I don't know, like I've been playing music with my now fiance, Jenny, and so we were doing music more and more, and I was, it's for a while I was teaching and doing improv and then doing music, and then we started to pare it down to just, I stopped doing improv, so then it was just teaching and then music, and then it reaches that point where if you're really going to do music, or in your case, photography, you have to reach that point where it's just music. And so for that point for me was, really Jenny was the one that helped convince me to just give up the MAT program, which was tough because I'd already spent, probably 20 grand on that program. So it took a lot of convincing for me to just get off of that train and just pursue music. But, she just talked to me about it, and it made sense. And it was really hard. It was hard to explain to my parents. But I ended up dropping out of the program. And so then I was just teaching to just really make money to support music. And then this is the first year that all of a sudden I had to quit teaching because I've started touring, and it looks like this year I can just tour. I'm going to be touring enough to support myself. Really, this is the turning point for me is this year. So
that's amazing. I mean, seriously, congratulations on all that, because I know that's hard, especially when you have a more secure job and you're trying to make that leap into full-time music and stuff. I mean, so I guess you didn't really have it planned out very well. Something happened, I guess, with Jenny talking to you and stuff, and you just kind of came to that realization and just said, all right, cool, I'm leaving.
Yeah, it really, especially, I'm doing this later, I think, than a lot of people. I'm 37, And when you start to hit 30, you become more practical, I think. At least I did. And
Or adulting.
yeah, and you just start to assume, well, I obviously need to stop doing music, and I need to teach, obviously. That's or like I need a career. I definitely need to start getting retirement together. And so I don't know. Part of it is I'm older, so it was harder for me to make that shift.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I guess it happened gradually in that, I met Jenny about 7 years ago, and we started working on music. We started a band, about 7 years ago. And so it started out, the first 2 years it was just purely a hobby. And then, after 3 or 4 years, we were more serious about it. And then 5 and 6 and 7 years, it was, somewhere, around that time, there was a big shift where you're like, well, I'm not just going to do this hobby forever,
Was there like a point, I guess, where you guys started making money?
We haven't at this point I haven't started making money with Fredrick the Younger in that I can pay my rent with it, but we make enough to invest everything that we make with that band. We just invest right back into the band and pay for recordings and pay for touring expenses and all that stuff. So, this year I'm going to also be making money going on tour with another band called Houndmouth. I'll be making money doing that. It'll be a combination of the two bands.
Is that a popular thing that musicians do, where they'll kind of work with other bands?
I don't know. I think that's a good point. I think for the most part, no. This is just a unique opportunity where I'll be touring with Houndmouth, and then we're actually also Fredrick the Younger is going to be going out with Houndmouth and opening for some of the touring. Yeah, so that's working out really well. And for this year, it looks like I'll be able to do both. Maybe plan some touring with Fredrick the Younger, kind of in the creases.
Oh, that's awesome. I guess kind of backtracking a little bit to where you're kind of thinking almost like, hey, it's time to be an adult. Maybe I should get a real job. And then you decided to go back into music and try to, I guess, make it as a musician. I don't know, did something just switch in your head to where you're just like, hey, I got to give it one last try? Or, what was that I guess caused that?
There was this moment. It was sometime in January, I think. It was before the semester started at Bellarmine, where I was getting my teaching degree. I was just talking to Jenny one night, and she was getting anxious about me having to go into this huge semester that I was about to go into, where I was going to have to, do a dissertation or something crazy. It was going to be time consuming, and I was just like, no, it'll be okay. I'm just got to get through this semester, then I can do student teaching, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, we just got in this big discussion about it. And she was like, no, I think you have to quit school. I think you have to do that in order to get this off the ground. And it was it was a big conversation that we hadn't had yet. And that I hadn't even, up to that point, even considered dropping out of school.
That's scary.
She put that in my head, and I was thinking after we talked about it, I was like, God, there really is no other way. That makes the most sense. And so I was crippled with anxiety, for the next couple of weeks, because I had to go tell my professor I'm not coming back. I was also getting funding from, JCPS, and I had to email them and be like, sorry, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so I don't know. I had to tell my parents. So that was I feel like that was the biggest turning point for me, where it was like, well, dropped out of school. That was a lot of money. And so I was like, so this better count, we got to do this.
Damn, that's great. And that's really scary. That feeling, especially, as we're older, it's definitely a lot scarier, I think. Did you, when you were younger, did you always want to be a musician? Was that like your dream? Like, I'm just going to be a musician?
Yeah, definitely. Ever since really seventh grade, I think when I first got a guitar, it was that in skateboarding, and I felt like I knew I wasn't going to make it in skateboarding. So yeah, it's always been music for me. And even when I've tried to do other things, I always end up doing music every single day. That's all I think about.
Dang, yeah, because I remember, like, yeah, I guess it was 7th and 8th grade and stuff, and you were playing in the living room stuff, and I was like, damn, this guy's so good at the guitar, you know? And I was, like, really envious because I wanted to be good at the guitar, and I had a guitar, and I was terrible at it. But I think you were taking lessons or something at that point.
Yeah, I was. I appreciate that.
So let me ask you, where do you find inspiration for music? Is it something that, like, you see other musicians, or is it something outside of music? Is it life? You know, like, what is it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, I do a lot of the arrangements. So a lot of my inspiration comes from Jenny, who is the main songwriter. And so that would be a great question for her because she does most of the songwriting, and then she just lets me do whatever when it comes to all the parts and the layering and the textures and all that. And really, that just all comes from, I think, things that I've listened to over the years and things that I love. You know, all my influences, I feel like, homogenize and come out, and all the parts that I come up with. As far as songwriting goes, yeah, I also write usually 2 or 3 songs on the record. And that, for me, is usually I just write personal stuff.
Okay. Just from life?
Yeah. My songs tend to be, I feel self-indulgent a lot of times because I look back at my lyrics and like, this song's all about me. Like very first person, you know, and it would be great to actually break away from that. And then musically, usually actually it doesn't even start with lyrics. It starts with a melody or a guitar hook or something. You know, it's funny, I've tried to write political songs and I just don't connect with them. And also they just kind of bum me out. And I've tried to, it's funny when you, all the things that you try to write about, but there are only a few things that really are, A, not embarrassing, and 2, like you actually feel something, like feel connected to the lyrics. For the most part, lyrics they're hard to write because they just, for the most part, sound so stupid. They're
I guess, especially without, like, you know, the music and other things kind of backing it up.
Yeah, sure. I know. It's funny how much just a melody can add meaning to your lyrics. I think I have asked a lot of musicians, and from personal experience also, I think the most honest way and the most effective way for me, and I guess for a lot of people that I've talked to, is you just start playing, and then a line will come to you when you're coming up with a melody. Like a line will come to you out of like 100 lines that'll stick and that'll like make sense to you and that you'll feel connected to. And then you'll write the rest of the song around that line and try to figure out what the song is based on these lines that just come to you from nowhere. Yeah, I think that is probably the most effective way that I write. And so it's coming to me, you know, from, you said, do you write about life? You know, it all comes very vaguely and nebulously from somewhere, but I think subconsciously it's all coming from life experience and what I'm feeling at the moment. And a lot of times, okay, now that you mentioned it, one thing that I do feel like it's easier to write when I'm writing about somebody else, which kind of contradicts what I was saying before.
Do you think that's a vulnerability thing? Like you feel less vulnerable writing about somebody else versus yourself?
It's either that or I just don't have enough going on to write
your
about.
life is boring, so it's like,
It's
like trying to be a vlogger and you don't really do anything.
Yeah, I just feed off of other people's drama.
So how would you describe your music? Like what you're currently doing now?
Currently, we are pretty much psychedelic rock.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I got. I was just listening to all your tracks and stuff, so.
I think we venture off probably more than other bands. we don't have like really like the most consistent style. I feel like we break off and do different things. But for the most part, I think it's psychedelic is the thing that kind of unifies it.
Do you think the like you mentioned the style part is? Do you think that's because you're still newer as a band and trying to make it, and it just kind of develops over time?
I think we're always going to be this more eclectic. I think.
Okay.
Because I mean, in some ways, it would be nice to have a very consistent style every single song. You know, like a Nirvana Nevermind.
Yeah.
It's just, but the way that we just work on songs and the way we've always worked on songs is we start with the song. I guess if you start with the song just on an acoustic guitar, it can really go many different ways. And so I think we start with the song and then we play it in the style that I think best suits the song. And so on our new album, we have a song that just sounded better as an R&B song, kind of like an older, you know, I don't know, Motown R&B type.
Yeah.
So that's the direction we went with it because we didn't want to like force it to be a psychedelic rock song. So some songs just really lend themselves to a different style. And instead of like forcing it into our main genre, let it turn into that.
That's interesting on its own self because it kind of sets you apart from all the other bands out there. It seems like a lot of bands, they usually have kind of like their style, and you can hear a change of style like over many years, you know, where yours is kind of just like, hey, whatever the song fits, that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, and it has its pros and cons. I mean, there are, you know, like I said, like Nirvana Nevermind, that's an amazing way to stick with a style. You know, they have that one sound, that style, and it's consistent through the album, and it's great. But it's also, you know, I guess it's good to be eclectic in a sense because it's exciting. You listen to the album and it has all these different facets, but it also can work against you because it confuses your audience. So
I can see that.
So I've come to terms with it though. I'm okay with people being confused to an extent, you know, as long as we're just making music that we want to make.
At the end of the day, do you think that's the most important thing, to make the music that you want to make versus trying to pander to like what's going to sell?
Yeah, definitely. And every time we have tried to pander, it's failed miserably. Like we make music that nobody wants to hear.
Because you guys aren't into it.
Yeah, and I think that might generally. I think a lot of people, experience that. You try to write music for other people, and then you end up with something that you don't want to listen to or them.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities to photography, you know, especially like starting out as a younger photographer, we're always trying to find a style. And I always tell people it's like, you can't always just find a style. Like sometimes it just finds you. And that's very much how it was for me. Like I didn't have quote unquote a style going into it because I didn't have any experience to know what a style would even be for me. It's kind of like skateboarding in the same way, you know, like you just kind of develop over time your style of doing things, and that's what it is that you do. And then if you try to like detour from who you are as a person and what goes into your art, then it just becomes something that nobody wants, and then you're unhappy and everybody else is unhappy.
Yeah, definitely.
So kind of going on kind of what we talked about so far, you know, I guess as a musician or a creative and artist, do you ever go through times of like self-doubt and depression and just feel it's not worth it? Maybe you just want to give up? Or, I mean, how do you get through that if you deal with that sort of thing?
Yeah, I haven't really experienced that since. I've honestly never given up on music. But yeah, okay, so like I guess I kind of relate to that, to where like it is so overwhelming sometimes. We've definitely had some like overwhelming times, but the next day, almost always what happens is it just drives us to do music more. And so if music is your therapy, all this stuff that goes down, I mean, the tremendous stress and the disappointments and, you know, that all just a way to, the therapy is you just go back and you write more songs. That's happened like quite a few times. I mean, and that's always, it's just like the next day you just wake up and you write 2 more songs, and that helped you deal with what you're going through. And in a way, it's funny because you're still in music. You know, it would be nice to have a hobby outside of music where you could turn to that and just forget about music and just, you know, maybe I should do photography.
I was going to suggest that. Like,
I don't
maybe
have that. So
yeah.
the way I deal with my stress with music is I turn to music and I make more music.
Yeah, that's funny because it's like, here's the way my emotional state usually works, you know, as a creative and an artist is one day I'm so happy and pumped. I'm making all this great stuff. I love everything that I'm doing. And then like 2 days later, I just feel like all my photography is shit. I am sucking as a business owner. I'm sucking as an artist. And everything is just coming down on me. You know, 3 days later, I'm back up on top, even higher, where I feel like, all right, now I'm accomplishing everything and I'm taking on the world. And then the next week, it's like, no, I want to quit. I'm over it. And it just keeps going through this cycle.
I totally relate to that as a musician. Yeah. And I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, recording an album, like I need to go into therapy after I record an album every single time because that process that you just described of like you think it's amazing, like it sounds amazing in the studio, and then you go home and you listen to it and it sounds amazing, and then you give it like 2 days and then you like all of these things, like these mistakes and these, you know, things just like errors just surface. Oh man, that's depressing. And then it's the whole process of like going back into the studio or just cutting some overdubs and like trying to fix this and trying to fix that and then remixing it. And yeah, it's funny with music, especially. I mean, you listen to it and you're totally stoked about it. And then the next day, just so many things come to the surface, you know. That's where longevity is with music is I think it's got to be, I mean, it's like definitely as a musician, that's the trickiest part. And it's my ultimate goal is to write a song that is going to be equally good in a year or in 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just so hard because music, it's funny how like great something can be, but then 2 songs can be written, okay, the same year, and they can be amazing songs. And then in 10 years, one is still great, and then the other one is just so dated for some reason. And it's really hard to predict what is going to stand the test of time as a musician, and it'll drive you crazy. So I guess you just have to let it go and keep writing songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I found too. And it seems like that emotion and just dealing with like those ups and downs, it's not just an individual thing. I think it's just kind of like the creative process. You know, that's just kind of what we go through to get to the next point. It's kind of a double-edged sword. Like on one hand, I feel it's like it's beneficial almost.
Yeah.
And the other hand, I'm just so pissed I'd even have to deal with that sort of thing.
I feel like it is beneficial, and it just naturally, artists, you know, by natural selection, you know, it's something that's embedded in us, that we are just totally excited about something initially. And then, because that like keeps you going, I think. And otherwise, if you knew how bad the song was in your first draft, you would have given up.
Yeah.
But, you know, in our biology, we write a bad song and we actually think it's great. And it takes us some time to realize, you know, that it like, oh, well, it's not that great. It needs this and that. And then, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I get it. Do you think that's more stemmed from being a perfectionist and wanting the best? Or do you think it's just because at that time you're not as, like, I guess, educated or experienced as you are, you know, maybe a few days, a few weeks, a few months, years later?
I think what I was thinking of is like Mike Birbiglia. Have you heard of him?
Mm-mm.
He does comedy. He's a stand-up, and he also does a one-person show. He was I think doing a story on the Moth, and he was talking about as a comedian, he has the ability to be in denial. And denial is what sustains him as a comedian, because you have to go up and you have to just fail every single night. If you were honest with yourself, you would just think that, you know, people hated you. But he was like, I have the ability to just be in denial and walk off the stage after just bombing and be like, that went pretty well. I think it's partly that. It's just, you know, I think that's what I was thinking is like you can, you need those little positive reinforcements when you're writing, and you need the ability to be totally stoked about every little thing. And when that fades at that point, then you think of a way to make it better.
No, that's a great point. What was it like the very first time you performed on stage? I guess let's take it from two sections. What was it like when you were younger? Because I remember when you were younger, I was a roadie for you guys. Remember that? Yeah.
I do like at Twice Told coffee shop.
Yeah. So what was it like, I guess kind of in those days and then now? Like, I don't know what it's like to perform or how many people you have, that come to shows or whatever. But, what was it like, I guess, in each kind of scenario?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I was 12 and 13, it was too overwhelming. And I would just actually shut down. I would get depressed. I just remember that sensation, like going to perform when I was at, 13 and just getting just really depressed right before I was going to go on because it was just too much.
Really? And just seeing you, I never would have even thought that.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I guess it wasn't always like that, but sometimes, I don't know. I just remember that from being in middle school and high school. I'm sure I had other times when I was totally stoked. I think also at that age, though, it's like you're over the moon when anything good happens. Playing. Yeah. It's like just having people watching you and just clapping after you play a song. I don't know. I think for the longest time, though, performing was just overwhelming and I would overthink things and I was nervous like everybody. And now I've reached the point where it's actually, it's still terrifying because now I have so many more things to worry about. Like I have a pedal board that constantly goes wrong and I have to troubleshoot. And then I have a keyboard that is constantly, going awry. And there's just so many things to think about. But for the most part, it's really, really fun to perform. I finally feel very comfortable.
Do you think that just comes with experience or in just kind of getting used to being in that situation?
Yeah. I mean, I think music in general, it took like 15 years before I really enjoyed playing music because it's so hard to learn how to play music. It's funny. I really feel like for a straight decade, I played music just to torture myself or something, or just like because I had to. It was just something new that I had to do. And then like at a certain point, I remember I realized that it was actually kind of enjoyable to play music, if that makes any sense. So yeah, now I feel like I've reached the point where performing wise, I can turn off my brain. I don't think about anything and I just play and perform and I roll around on the floor and I like climb up on tables and like I feel like now I could parachute out of an airplane and I could pretty much play the guitar parts.
So now you've kind of mastered, or maybe not mastered, but you got the music down enough to where you can focus on just performing and showing your personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way it is with photography too. Especially like when we're starting out, we're trying to figure out how to get all the technical shit down. So we're like trying to figure out how to use the camera, how to do the lighting and stuff. And we're not as focused on like, say we're shooting a couple, interacting with them and getting that part down. But once you get good at the technical stuff, none of that stuff you don't even think about that part. And it's all about just engaging people and talking to them and making them laugh and kind of getting them comfortable, for the photos. So I guess it's kind of the same process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just an experience thing. It's so weird how music and I guess just everything in the creative realm, it's all basically the exact same thing almost. It's just kind of a different brushstroke, I guess,
Yeah. Because, I mean, music, we, come to think of it, I mean, musically, you deal so much with visual art. And really, especially nowadays, like your band branding visually, music is such a visual thing now. Music videos, YouTube, I mean, I feel like people are more visual when they are with music these days. And the way your band looks, I think, is more important now. The artwork that you use, it's all, that is something in the last, 7 years I've realized is way more important than I thought. especially when you look at all the bands nowadays, they all have amazing art. They all look great. You know, they all have a great brand. It's just like, even like kids, you know, like the bands that are coming out that they're like 18, 19-year-olds, they have killer websites, and you know, they have great band photos, and they have great music videos. You know, they're so good at it. And it's just art. I mean, photography and, you know, paintings and all the visual art that goes is very important, you know, in music these days. And I actually used a photo that I took in college for our album, Human Child.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was a photo that I took like 16 years ago.
So Jenny's in the band. She's like the lead singer?
Yeah, she's the lead singer, chief songwriter.
So what's it like, I guess, working with your now fiance?
It's actually great. It's great for us. I think historically, it's been very difficult for bands. You know, when you're thinking of like Fleetwood Mac and ABBA, and you know, but no, it works out great actually, because you have to, especially with our relationship, we're just able to spend a ton of time together. We spend so much time together working on music. It works out. You know, yeah, I don't know.
Well, what do you guys, kind of going back to like, you know, visual arts and marketing and stuff like that. So how do you guys handle marketing and I guess getting your name out there? I heard an interview you guys did for a radio station, I believe, to where you guys were like being played in like New York and California and Chicago and stuff. Like, how does that process work?
Let's see. I guess for Human Child, we had a PR person that is a huge help. His name's Spencer. Sorry, I can't remember his last name. He's gonna kill me. But anyway, he's our PR person. He did a great job pitching Human Child. He got us on Consequence of Sound and Noisy. So these great like online publications. We also had a radio PR person. So yeah, I guess that's how we ended up getting played on the radio. I actually didn't know about that. I don't know like the stations that played our music, but I did know that we had like a radio promo guy.
Okay. So the marketing part is not something you even think about. It's just kind of handled by somebody else.
Yeah, but we have to arrange all the things like all the artwork, the band photos, and all that stuff. The website, you know, I guess like the shows also. We a lot of times design the stage and sometimes we bring our own lights. We have photographers that take pictures at our shows, and so all that stuff helps too.
Yeah,
just having good images from the shows.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting controversy because you hear so much about, like, I guess, you know, like really huge artists who are just like banning iPhones, and a lot of times there's controversy with even like pit photographers that go there specifically for certain publications and stuff to do a job. Like, that's their job, and they're getting into fights with these photographers and stuff, and just it almost seems like the photographers are good to be there, you know, to help kind of promote things, but
yeah.
I don't know. Do you know anything about that? Like, why that sort of thing happens?
I know that that's a big issue with, I don't know, like stand-up comedians. Obviously, it's a little different because a joke is best the first time you hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Don't like just their jokes getting leaked on the internet from like somebody who taped it from, you know, on their iPhones. I feel like musicians, though, I think it's great. I mean, it's a great help when people post videos that they've taken from the shows. I can see how, like, if it's a really bad show and somebody posts it, it's maybe embarrassing. I don't ever see anything like that like really hurting you though that much. I think the more people that post videos from your shows would be the better.
Well, at least starting out for sure. You know, get the name out there and stuff. Are you guys really active on social media? Like, I don't know, Facebook or Instagram or anything?
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram, and we're not as active on Twitter as we should be, but That's all. For us, it's more of a something that doesn't come naturally. Like we don't naturally like to do it, but I don't know. It's kind of fun too once you get into it.
Yeah, I think that's life for a lot of people, I mean, especially photographers. It's just like you only got so much time to do so much, and not everybody is the vlogger that can just do Facebook Lives every day and Instagram stories and stuff like that. But it's almost kind of a necessity in some ways because that just seems like where the platforms are going, that they want that type of engagement. So if you want any kind of reach on those platforms, you kind of have to start doing stuff like that. I don't know, just looking at it from the outside, like if you guys were to start doing like, I don't know, like Q&A Facebook Lives or something, or kind of like stories of like when you're on tour and things like that, like I would find that fascinating. Just kind of to be able to get a glimpse into kind of what you guys are doing and a little bit more of the behind the scenes aspect of it.
Yeah, like a road journal, video diary.
Yes, yeah, like almost like a little mini journal vlog, to where it's just like every day you just have little stories on Instagram, or like once a week you guys kind of sit down together and just answer questions from whoever wants to ask them on a Facebook Live or something.
That's a great idea. I might try to do something like that. I mean, when we go out in April, because that's going to be a big run, like 3 straight weeks and a lot of shows, like almost every night.
I don't know what it is. People just really engage in other people's lives for some reason. Like that, they're all into like the drama or the behind the scenes of what's going on all the time. Maybe their own lives suck or something. I don't know what the deal or what the attraction with that is. But like drama TV's always been a thing, and now it's kind of the same. Only we're seeing it on like YouTube and Instagram stories and stuff. So I don't know. I find that interesting. And oddly, like I find a lot of like when I shoot behind the scenes, like little videos or photos of kind of what I'm doing, it often gets more attention than the actual photos.
Yeah, that's funny. It's something we're in this era, which is a good thing, of people want real. And I've found that in the music, talking about correlations in music, it's definitely the DIY recordings are just really resonate with people. I think they reached a point where they got so tired of just overproduced, overcompressed recordings. I found like people really do like real, I guess,
Your plan now is to make it as a musician and just go for it?
Yeah, definitely. It would be great if I could just do music and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the dream for all of us, is that we just want to do our passions and somehow make a living out of it.
Yeah, because, I just remember for the past 7 years, just working every single day, teaching for 7-8 hours a day. And then you go home and then you do music until, 11 or midnight. And then you wake up at 6, and go teach for 7 hours. And it's not that it's so much better when you save that energy. Usually you work your job at that ample time also of the day when you have the most energy.
Yeah.
And just working a job during that great, just using all that energy for the first half of the day and then going home and then, working on music when you're just getting your second wind.
Yeah, you're kind of already tired and used a lot of your energy up for the day.
Yeah. So really, like the past few, like since November when we came back from touring, it's been great. It's been the first time that I've been able to just dedicate every single hour of every single day to doing music.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of balance. It's the same thing with photography, I guess. We all, like, we usually have day jobs, and a lot of us want to go full time doing photography, and like that's the goal. But I also kind of find too, it's almost kind of like when you have that day job and you don't have as much time to do your passion, that you're more focused and more geared to always keep doing that versus like when sometimes, when you're full time doing what you love, you kind of slack off a little bit, almost take it for granted, I guess, in a way.
I wondered if that was going to happen, and so far it hasn't been the case. just because there is so much they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that we don't have to try to cram it in while we're working. I mean, so much of the stuff I was doing while I was working, you know?
So do you have any other like passions outside of music that you do instead of like just doing music all the time?
Like I said, I was doing improv but that was a few years ago. But I actually did improv for 4.5 years, and I was super into that.
Wow.
And so for a while, I was doing that and music, and it was hard to do both of them. I found I was getting, I was kind of mediocre at both. so I just stopped doing improv and then focused all on music. It would be healthy, though, for me to get back into another interest, not another hobby. And I do love doing improv, so maybe I'll do that.
Do you think that's helpful for being a musician, improv?
Yeah, sure. And even, I mean, I do improv piano, like keyboard sometimes. I actually have a show coming up this Friday. The first one I've done in a while, but so that's really fun. I mean, improv acting I'm not the best at, but I feel like I can come up with piano parts and songs all day long.
So how does that help, I guess, as being a musician? Because I've been told by a number of people to take improv classes, so I've decided that I'm actually going to do that to make me just better at photography, not the actual picture taking part, but the interactions with people. But then also, as a podcaster or a speaker or really anything else, that the improv is super important. But so it's interesting that you bring it up, and I'm curious how that has helped you, I guess, as a performer and a musician.
Yeah, I think a lot of people take improv courses even if they're not doing improv professionally. A lot of business people take improv classes because it does help with the whole social aspect of your career. Musically, it definitely helps you get over stage fright because there's nothing more vulnerable than doing a scene that hasn't been written yet.
Yeah.
Just making improv acting is terrifying. I mean, you're trying to do a scene that's hopefully funny, but at the least not embarrassing. It definitely takes off the edge your stage fright. Also, it's just about connection with other people, basically. Just being accepting. I guess another thing with improv is that, improv really helped me with teaching too. I guess that's good. It teaches you the skill of just being in the moment and making good decisions in the moment.
Real quick before I end up forgetting, where can people find you guys and buy music and all that sort of thing?
Oh, sure. We have a website, which is fredricktheyounger.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Bandcamp.
Is that all under the same name?
Spotify. We're on iTunes. Yeah, so the name is just Fredrick the Younger.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was really cool just to kind of see from a different creative's kind of point of view, what that process really looks like on the inside, I guess, and kind of behind the scenes. And also, just taking that leap of faith and really trying to make it somewhere with your passion.
Yeah, it's been good catching up.
All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a little different than chatting with other photographers, but I think I really want to start reaching out to more people that are outside of photography, as I feel there's a lot we can really learn that's outside of the industry. And of course, I'm still going to have chats with other photographers, so don't worry about that. But in this case, I feel as photographers, there's a lot we can really relate to with Aaron and his story, and that we can all take away from and learn something from. But what did you guys think? What did you take away from this conversation? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so if you haven't already, you can join the Photobar Podcast group on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Photobar Podcast. Or you can just type in Photobar Podcast Lounge in the search field there on Facebook, And if you want to, you can email me at photobarpodcast@gmail.com. Because I would really love to hear any ideas of topics you might have, people you would like me to chat with, how can I improve the show, or, really anything else that you might have to say. Of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. I want to make sure that you never miss an episode, so be sure to hit the subscribe button now so you don't forget, and you'll get new episodes the moment that they come out. And if you could, please share this podcast with your friends. Lastly, if you could help me grow the community of Photobar Patreons by leaving a 5-star review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening to free podcast at, because it really helps me stay motivated to keep creating content, and it could also help other people find this podcast so they too can, hopefully improve their own photography, their businesses, and their personal lives. But that's going to wrap up this episode. So until next time, have fun, be safe, and I'll talk to you guys then. But I think I saw I'm pretty sure that's not words at all.